5 people entered Blackwood Manor on a stormy night. By sunrise, one of them would be dead. Everyone had a motive. Everyone had a secret. But the real killer was the one person nobody suspected. This is the mystery of Blackwood Manor. Rain hammered against the tall windows of Blackwood Manor. Lightning flashed across the dark sky as luxury cars pulled into the circular driveway. Inside the mansion, crystal chandeliers illuminated one of the most extravagant birthday celebrations the city had ever seen. The guest of honor was Richard Blackwood, a self-made millionaire, a respected businessman, and a man with more enemies than friends. Tonight marked his 60th birthday, but despite the music, the expensive food, and the smiling faces, something felt wrong. Richard could sense it. Among the guests were the 5 people he trusted most: his son, Daniel, his daughter, Emily, his lifelong friend, Thomas, his personal assistant, Sarah, and his lawyer, Mr. Collins. Each had been part of his life for years. Each would soon become a suspect. As dinner was served, Richard stood from his chair and tapped his glass. The room fell silent. No one knew that his next words would change everything. Richard cleared his throat. "There is something important I need to tell all of you." The guests exchanged nervous glances. Richard continued, "After much thought, I have decided to make changes to my will." The atmosphere instantly changed. Daniel's smile disappeared. Emily sat upright. Thomas stopped eating. Sarah looked down at her plate. Mr. Collins adjusted his glasses. Richard continued, "Most of my fortune will no longer remain within the family." Gasps echoed through the dining room. Instead, Richard announced that a large portion of his wealth would be donated to charity. Several charities, in fact, organizations that help struggling families and children. The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm outside. Daniel looked furious. Emily appeared shocked. Thomas stared at the table. Sarah remained expressionless. The celebration never recovered. By midnight, guests quietly returned to their rooms, and Richard retired to his private study. No one knew it would be the last time he would ever be seen alive. The next morning, a scream shattered the silence. A housekeeper had discovered Richard Blackwood lying motionless inside his study. He was dead. Police arrived within minutes. The study door had been locked from the inside. The windows were secured. There were no signs of forced entry. Detectives quickly realized they were dealing with a mystery. How had someone managed to kill Richard inside a locked room? The case was assigned to Detective James Parker, a veteran investigator known for solving impossible crimes. As Parker surveyed the room, one thing became clear. Everyone inside the mansion had a reason to want Richard gone, and one of them was lying. The detective began interviewing each guest. Daniel was first. Financial records revealed he was drowning in debt. He desperately needed money. Then came Emily. Her business had recently collapsed. She stood to inherit a fortune. Thomas had secretly borrowed a large sum from Richard, a debt he could never repay. Mr. Collins had access to legal documents and knew every detail of Richard's new will. Then there was Sarah, the loyal assistant, the woman who had worked beside Richard for years. Everyone described her as trustworthy, dependable, loyal. She seemed like the least likely suspect. But Detective Parker knew something important. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones nobody suspects. As investigators searched the mansion, strange clues emerged. Inside the fireplace, they discovered a partially burned document. Outside the study window, they found a muddy footprint, and beneath Richard's desk lay an expensive wristwatch. The watch belonged to Thomas. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Police arrested him immediately. News outlets reported that the case had been solved, but Detective Parker wasn't convinced. Something felt staged. The clues were too perfect, almost as though someone wanted Thomas to take the blame, and that suspicion would soon change everything. While reviewing the mansion's layout, Parker discovered something surprising. A forgotten security camera had been installed in the hallway years earlier. The footage had never been examined. When investigators finally accessed the recording, they watched at 10:14 p.m. Sarah appeared. She carried a silver tray, holding a cup of tea. She entered Richard's study. A few minutes later, she left. Richard was still alive. Then, 20 minutes later, another figure appeared. Emily. She quietly entered the study. When questioned, Emily admitted she had spoken privately with her father. But what she revealed shocked everyone. She had discovered a secret plot. Daniel and Thomas had been working together to steal money from Richard's company. She entered the study to warn him. Richard promised he would expose them the following day, but he never got the chance, because by morning he was dead. Forensic experts continued examining the evidence. Then they made a breakthrough. Tiny traces of poison were found inside Richard's teacup. Suddenly, the entire investigation changed. The killer hadn't used force. The killer had used patience and poison. The question was simple: who prepared the tea? The answer pointed directly towards Sarah, yet she denied everything, until Parker made one final discovery. The burned document from the fireplace wasn't part of the will. It was part of a life insurance policy worth millions, and only one name appeared as beneficiary: Sarah, the trusted assistant, the loyal employee, the woman everyone believed was innocent. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Sarah finally confessed. 4 years, she had earned Richard's trust. Over time, she convinced him to make her the beneficiary of a massive insurance policy. When Richard announced changes to his financial plans, Sarah feared she would lose everything. So she made a decision, a deadly decision. That night, she poisoned Richard's tea. Then she carefully planted false evidence. Thomas's watch, the muddy footprint, the burned document, everything had been designed to mislead investigators. And for a while, it worked. But not for long. Detective Parker had seen through the deception. The mystery was finally solved. The laboratory results confirmed the detective's suspicions. The poison had been placed in Richard Blackwood's tea by the one person he trusted most, his loyal assistant, Sarah. Driven by greed and desperate to secure a fortune she believed she deserved, she had carefully planned the murder and tried to destroy the evidence. But one small mistake exposed the truth. As the sun rose over Blackwood Manor, Sarah was led away in handcuffs. The mystery was finally solved, but the betrayal would never be forgotten.